Hello, it's Jim Hutchens for the Jerusalem Connection Spot Report for this week. This past week, Israel Defense Force Minister of Defense Moshe Alon came to Washington. It's debatable as how successful that visit was. He was denied an opportunity to visit with Vice President Joe Biden, with Secretary of State John Kerry, and with the National Security Advisor Susan Rice. But he made some comments, and I have always appreciated the forthrightness, the knowledgeable, the realistically knowledgeable approach of Moshe Ya'alon. Several years ago, I think it was about 2008, I was asked to invite Moshe Ya'alon to a conference of Christian Zionists where he would speak. I did so, and he accepted, and I had an opportunity to spend a couple of days with him. And I could see that this man was in touch with reality as far as the Palestinian issue was concerned. He came this past week, and he raised some issues that caused some to express some concern. For example, he talked about Turkey. We don't hear too much about Turkey with regard to Israel. He said this: Turkey's playing a cynical game. Hamas is supported by Turkey and Qatar. Hamas has two terror headquarters in Gaza and in Istanbul. Hamas moved its terror headquarters from Damascus to Istanbul in Turkey, a NATO member, incidentally, where it is represented by Saleh al-Arori, who orchestrates terrorist attacks against Israel from there. So he raised the whole issue of Turkey involving themselves with the Palestinian issue. It's yet to be determined as to exactly to what extent Turkey will be involved with ISIS, however. And then during a visit to Walter Reed Army Medical Center, he spoke to some of the wounded American veterans there. And during his comments there, he said, as far as the Palestinians are concerned, the conflict will not end with the 1967 borders, not going back to that. That's what he's saying. And there are many who advocate that. The politically correct liberalism of the West is requiring that. It will not happen. Israel's security is too much at stake if it does. But this humanist utopia that we're demanding Israel provide is just not going to happen in this life. He said the heart of the conflict is a lack of desire on their part, namely the Palestinians, to recognize us and our right to exist as a Jewish state. The Palestinian education system, the Palestinian rhetoric, caused the incidents that are occurring in Jerusalem. Yesterday, he's referring to last Wednesday. Yesterday we saw the result of this in the murder of an infant in Jerusalem by a young man with Hamas-related background. This was a 3-year-old child that was killed when a Palestinian drove his car into a crowd. Why did it happen? It happened because in the Palestinian Authority, kindergarten children as young as 3 are taught, for example, to put on explosive belts and use them to kill Jews. As long as this is the situation and the Palestinian youth are educated to kill Jews, there will never really be peace here. In an interview with Charlie Rose, I saw Moshe Ya'alon speaking to this issue, and he said, basically, we have no peace partner. The two-state solution is basically dead, and that is mainly because the Palestinians do not want a two-state solution. They want a one-state solution, a Palestinian state built upon the ashes of the modern state of Israel. Now that's something we're not hearing from many of the spokesmen from Israel, but that is a true fact. That's exactly what the case is. Speaking at a gathering in Washington, Ya'alon said that the Palestinian Authority has never sought peace. The terror attack Wednesday is the natural outcome of the education to incitement against Jews given to every Palestinian school child, and the encouraging of the concept of the Jews will eventually be eliminated. The incitement starts with lies told by Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, at the United Nations. There was also another statement that he made during his visit here that caused some concern. Part of our leadership, Western leadership, this utopian humanist leadership, that the West would impose upon Israel. Yalon said, unfortunately, we find that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is dominated by too many misconceptions. We don't find any linkage between the uprising in Tunisia, the revolution in Egypt, the sectarian conflict in Iraq, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Mainly these come from the Sunni-Shia conflict without any connection to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The core of the conflict is their reluctance, the Palestinians, their reluctance to recognize our right to exist as a nation state of the Jewish people. I spoke about misconceptions. It is a misunderstanding without naming anyone. It might be naivete, wishful thinking, or I would add willful denial. Quote, we the Westerners know what is good for the Arabs. To believe that, you can have democratization with elections, which is a illusion. It is collapsing in front of us, and part of it is ignorance. Yes, it is ignorance. However, with regard to his meeting with his counterpart, the Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel, he said, I can tell you between the Pentagon and the Israeli Defense Forces, there's an unbreakable bond. The United States is Israel's strategic ally. The Israeli army, military there, is one of the best in the world. And I think we can expect, realistically and from the Bible, to see some stunning victories on the part of this military in the days ahead. But the scriptures speak of a time when the military will not be enough. They will need and they will receive divine intervention. Moses spoke of this. Moses says in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 36, Yahweh will judge his people and have compassion on his servants when he sees their strength is gone and no one is left slave or free. When he sees their strength is gone, their military strength, their power is gone, and there's none left, slave or free. What does God do? What happens then? Verse 40. Yahweh says, I lift my hand to heaven and declare, as surely as I live forever, when I sharpen my flashing sword and my hand grasps it in judgment, I will take vengeance on my adversaries and repay those who hate me. And he concludes by saying, verse 43, rejoice, O nations, rejoice, O Gentiles, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants. He will take vengeance on his enemies and make atonement for his land and for his people. When worse comes to worse, that's when Yahweh intervenes. And he will make atonement for his land and for his people. In the meantime, those of us who love Israel, Christian Zionists, must stand with Israel and the Jewish people. Till next week, Od Ki of Oshilo, until Messiah comes, Ivareka Yahweh. God bless you. God bless yours.